Welcome back. You're still watching Nile Cruise on Nile TV, and this segment will be dedicated to the International Women's Day, the IWD, which is celebrated on the 8th of March of every year. It commemorates the movement of the women's rights. While the first observance of the Women's Day was held on February the 28th in 1909 in New York, March 8th was suggested by the 1910 International Women's Conference to become an International Women's Day after women gained suffrage in Soviet Russia in 1917. On March the 8th became a national holiday there. The day was then celebrated by the socialist movement and communist countries until it was adopted in 1975 by the United Nations. March is the month of the Egyptian women too, as the Egyptian Women's Day is celebrated on the 16th of March of every year. And I'm honored to be having with me today on the Nile Cruise Dr. Hedayet Abdel Naby, who is a journalist. Dr. Hedayet, thank you very much for being with us today on Nile Cruise.
Dr. Hedayet, women are an important factor in the society, and the empowerment of women is an issue that we've been discussing for decades, since even the time of Hoda Sha'rawi and Qasim Amin till modern times. We have achieved many things since then, but we still need to achieve more. Last year, President Abdel al-Sisi announced that last year was the Women's Year, and we're still continuing with the calls for the empowerment of women. Now, what do we really need now?
Well, I tell you, it's a good occasion that soon we will have the presidential elections, and women will be the bulk of the voters who will vote for President Abdel al-Sisi. And I hope that following his victory, a number of things would be rectified. First and foremost is the issue of a woman judge. We don't have until today a woman judge. We did have a woman judge, but since a couple of years we don't have one. And I think this lacks, it gives a bad impression about the women status in Egypt. The second thing I think that should be looked at carefully is the penal code, because I understand that the penal code is not really in conformity with the Constitution, and it has discrimination against women. And this is the part that is very important for all Egyptian women, because the bulk of Egyptian women who are subjected to such incidents that the penal code discriminates in them are those who are needy of protection. And therefore I hope that after President el-Sisi assumes his second term, that these two matters will be looked at very carefully and closely. The other thing that I'm wishing that it could happen in the next 4 years is that a number of countries have reached equality between men and women in the cabinet, in the government. And I hope that Egypt would join these countries, that in the coming years we will have equality between men and women in numbers in the cabinet, especially that now we have very important portfolios that are run by women in the Egyptian cabinet.
So, in your opinion, what are the most important moments in the Egyptian feminist movements?
I would say the first and foremost is Hoda Sha'rawi's removing of the veil. It remains until today, it's a key to progress. The fact that Hoda Sha'rawi defied everybody and removed the veil, a landmark and key to progress. I would say that many things have happened. The first minister to enter the government of Egypt. We have so many qualified women in all walks of life. Women have done very, very, very well. And I hope it continues.
Mrs. Hedayet, I understand that recently you had articles dealing with women issues and that you're a feminist in a sense. So would you like to share with us some of your thoughts?
Well, I'm very I support strongly the move to have a woman judge, and because of that, our colleague Omnia Tahir Muhammad Gadalla, who has an article that is displayed, has sent to the president several times requesting the position of a woman judge. And for that reason, I have published in my magazine her letter to the president. We will continue supporting her, and I think she deserves support because, you know, it's something that lacks. You have a very good panorama in Egypt of the achievements of women, and then you come to spots where things are lacking. We need to fill the gap.
So, in the Year of Women, under the tenure of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, what do you think were the most important moments and gains for the Egyptian women?
Well, in a nutshell, he himself said in one of his speeches or reaction or answer to questions, when they told him we need more women to be ministers, he himself said, "But I am your supporter." President al-Sisi told women that he supports their causes. I think there is a lot of, I mean, I can't tell you exactly certain things that happened, but I would tell you that in a nutshell, there is smoothness in the path of women. Women are doing their job well, and I think it's okay. I mean, it was a good year, but it lacked. It lacked the woman judge, and it lacked the revision of the penal code.
Dr. Hedayet, usually the women that usually we address, that they have a lot of challenges, are not city women as much as the rural area women. So how can we address them, and how can we meet their needs, and what do they really need from us?
Well, I think there is a movement in Egypt which should be saluted, which is the work of the NGOs. And they are doing a wonderful job. And those who are not following closely their work can see the ads on television. That, for example, when winter comes, they make calls to the people to help others. For health reasons, they make calls also for building hospitals. And I think rural women, number one, is to be able to read and write. That's important. I think television, in a nutshell, gives all Egyptians a good view of what's going on in the country, and people can follow it very easily. But it's very important for a woman in the rural area who is a mother to be able to read and write. And I think this is also addressed by NGOs.
So, in your field of expertise and as a journalist, do you think was it hard for you to be proving yourself as a woman journalist in the same field?
That's a nice question. In competition with men, there was no competition at all. I think I did a good job. But in terms of progress, to reach the helm of the business, that's not easy. Because at that point, it's not only being a clever journalist that writes your token. It's other factors. And when you come to the other factors, if you lack them, then you can never reach the helm. So I have not reached the helm, but I was a good journalist.
But I understand that actually the title of editor-in-chief, it's mainly to women and artistic magazines when it comes to ladies so far in Egypt, isn't it?
Well, I think, this is one point that I wish the coming 4 years would address in the second term of President al-Sisi, because it's so gratifying to find a woman editor-in-chief of one of the 3 main newspapers, Al-Ahram, Al-Akhbar, or Al-Jumhuriyya. I think I will be the first to salute her and go and hug her and congratulate her. And I will be very supportive of her work, and I will help her a lot if she needs assistance from people who have experience. I think this should be addressed because you are right. It's a problem when you have an editor-in-chief who is only looking at art and cinema, books. It's not a difficult job, frankly. And this is not to lower the standard of that area. No, not at all. I mean, there is in Egypt a boom in the artistic work, and women are prevailing in painting, in photography, in cinema, in even episodes on television. You see 3 directors in Sabagar, The Seventh Neighbor. Amazing. 3 directors who are women. So I don't belittle these fields. But it has been a tradition that the head of one of the 3 main political newspapers is a man.
Yes.
And I hope it will change in the next 4 years.
So what about the other challenges that you have witnessed in the field of journalism for women? What were they?
You know, I was a reporter in the field, so I was not sitting in the newspaper. So a reporter in the field like you is always on the go and has no time for his life or her life. And I think this was the greatest challenge. But in terms of the job itself, the challenge was not very big, because if you love your work, you get engaged in it. I think maybe the system of information, the flow of information between the sources and the journalist was not particularly easy to get through. Apart of that, I think it was not a very difficult job.
Well, how do you see the role of the National Council of Women in terms of dealing with women issues? Because I understand also that many of the female journalists are involved with it, and you communicate constantly with the council itself.
Well, here you touched on a very important point, because the National Council for Women has a very important role in the rural areas, and they reach out to women everywhere, and they have representations all over the country. This is very important. And yes, there is a number of journalists who are advisors of the National Council for Women, and that's good, because you know, you cannot live in isolation. If you don't have the picture, the panoramic picture of the country, the details, the problems, the criticism. Journalists usually is critical. So it's very important to have some criticism in front of you, so that you can rectify the problems and move ahead. So I think it's good to have women advising the National Council for Women.
So
I mean journalists, not women.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
a lot of challenges and problems are facing women in Egypt nowadays, and it's just not about the laws, it's about the social misconceptions that we did see in the past here in Egypt. How can we change that, and how much time do we need to be changing that?
But I don't see really that we are really suffering heavily from it. I see that we are progressing. I mean, if you look in the streets and you see young men and women walking side by side on the Nile, this is progress. If you see them in university, they are mingling together. There's no wall between men and women, especially in the young generation. And of course, technology that has come around, and the revolution in technology, and the youth of Egypt is so savvy in that field, whether they are from the haves or the have-nots. Both are savvy.
In 2014, you were awarded by the Minister of Foreign Affairs for your work How do you feel about that? Of course, definitely you were awarded many awards, but that especially was because for in the field of...
You mean myself?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you were awarded.
Yeah.
Yes, and you are a member of several councils related to women and associations. So would you share that with us, please?
Yes, I was very happy. I was not in Egypt when I knew about that award. I was in Canada visiting my family. And a friend sent me a note saying, you know, you will be awarded something at the foreign ministry, I don't know, next week, the week after, or something like that. And of course, I had no clue. And then I tried to look here and there and call people and ask what's going on. So I understood that the award was for my work in the foreign ministry for many, many years, covering for Al Ahram newspaper. And of course, this is really it gave me a lot of a sense of pride that the foreign ministry, even after I left, remembered my work. And it was Minister Nabil Fahmy who gave me the award on that day. What else?
Well,
And hopefully that would be one of many, many awards that you will be
Yes.
receiving in the near future. Dr. Hedayet Abdel, the journalist, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
On
Thank
Nile
you.
Cruise.
thank you very much, Doctor. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of Nile Cruise. But first of all, I'd like to thank my colleague. Thank you very much, Ahmed Nader.
Thank you very much, Russia.
Thank you. And that brings us to the end of Nile Cruise. But make sure to follow us on our different social platforms, including our Facebook page, Nile Cruise on Nile TV. And till we meet again next week, it's goodbye.